Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. Our guest of today is Robert, and he's the CEO of Romulus. And Robert, why don't you tell a little bit more about yourself and what kind of things the company is doing?
All right. So, a quick background on me. I've been an entrepreneur since 2001, built 7 companies. I've sold 3, 2 of which were in automation companies where I automated buildings, homes, home theaters, lighting control. I was twice ranked top 100 CEOs in that industry. Also, was actually one of the premier people that brought LED lighting to the United States. I started inventing LED lights in 2005, brought them to market by 2009, and wound up selling that company in 2013. Had 500 distributors in 14 countries doing that. Since then, I've consulted. I've helped bring a lot of companies from out of U.S. manufacturing back to U.S. manufacturing. And then since 2020, I've run 2 companies in excess of $100 million. I grew one company with a group of entrepreneurs during COVID. We fed 35,000 children, 2 meals a day, 7 days a week at home. And we did about $115 million in a year and a half. And then the other was a telecom construction company that I took over at about 30 million. And within the first year, brought it to a little over 100 million in volume. So now I'm the CEO of Romulus. Romulus is a user-friendly centric voice AI system, a voice AI in a box, where we handle all the complicated integrations and tie-ins and everything on the back end automatically for you. And for those deploying voice AI or reselling voice AI, we're perfect simply because there's not a lot of effort. You can literally deploy and start tying into your CRM within 30 to 45 minutes, unlike traditional voice AI systems where you have to go through all the hooks and APIs. We kind of handle all that on the back end to where you don't need to see it. We also offer live technical support. So I've got 14 developers that work for me. In the event you're building a system and you need help, we're there for you.
Very nice. And with Romulus, right? With all the companies you are serving, do you see there's a certain type of company would benefit the most from your service?
So it's twofold for us. Ultimately, end users will be service-based companies where they get high call volumes. We're working on everywhere from HVAC companies, plumbers, real estate agents, HR companies that handle a lot of HR inbound and outbound calls. That's our primary customer base. And then our regular customer base are actually people looking to sell AI voice and want to sell AI chat. And we work indirectly through dealers to get to the customer base.
Yeah, very nice. And you've been talking from your own experience building and growing those companies, right? Part of being a founder and part of growing companies is like being really good at solving challenges, right? Solving problems when they come up. And like in all your experience, like what are some of the big challenges which has came up for you and how did you solve those challenges?
So that's an interesting question. My biggest challenge was how to get over myself because I was an egotistical young man, and learning humility when you need to have it in order to gain trust from your clients is pretty difficult as a young person. That one I overcame simply by messing up a bunch and learning I'm not as infallible as I once thought I was. Let's say on the business side, I would say the growth segment from a startup. How do you make it from a startup? Let's say your first 2 years, when to bring on employees? Do you bring on a partner? Do you bring on a financial investor, or do you continue to bootstrap it and go the hard way, or what is perceived as the hard way? And figuring that out. And I've tried all the different methods. I brought on financial people. I brought on a business partner. I've done it myself. They all suck. For the most part, they're incredibly painful to go through. There's not one that's better than the other. As a matter of fact, usually doing it by yourself and bootstrapping it tends to be a little bit better because you don't have a bunch of people yelling at you for the money they gave you or the money you're spending. It just kind of works. So for me, overcoming the fear of not moving forward or the fear of going too slow as a bootstrap company compared to one that seeks out a bunch of investors to hurry up and get off the ground. Unless you're prepared to lose money for 3 to 4 years straight, going to investors doesn't really make a lot of sense unless your business platform requires that for significant R&D up front. But for most business owners out there, that doesn't require.
Yeah, and I love how you're saying like on a personal level, learning that humility. I think part of learning that is taking action, learning just being okay with failing. And the moment you're taking action and not just taking action blindly, but having the ability to reflect upon your actions. I think that's really powerful.
It's really the key to my success was being willing to accept when I was wrong, not blame others for it. But as the man in charge or the person in charge, everything really is my fault anyway, whether it's an employee did it, whether it's some external thing happened that did it, it's ultimately my responsibility. So taking that responsibility, realizing that you could have done things better, it allows you to learn from it so that the next time you go, you're a little bit better. I mean, for me, I made great money early on, then had some really big struggles with bringing on my first investors in 2013 that bought my company. And I mean, frankly, because of the way that was handled, I wound up having to file bankruptcy in 2014 after just selling my company because I didn't do the exit properly. And they started doing some things that were illegal. And my attorney forced me to separate as much as possible from them, forcing me to go through bankruptcy in order to separate legally our entities. Because if I still shown ownership in any way, shape, or form, and they were doing things that were illegal, I would have been tried by the federal government for crimes first and had to pay to defend that. So bankruptcy was cheaper. Thankfully, I had money in a trust, so it was okay, but it still was not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. And if we're talking about Romulus, what are some of the ways you guys are acquiring new customers at the moment?
I'm actually a part of a bunch of school communities, Sarmazi school communities. I'm a part of a bunch of them, and just letting people get to know me as a serial entrepreneur, someone that's had great success, great failure, and getting to know me, building their trust. And as the dealers come in, we're going from there. I also have a couple of friends that are really big influencers, so they're assisting us in launching our platform with notoriety and with fame. So I'm simultaneously building my own brand of who Robert Owens is, what I have to offer, while saying this is my next $100 million company, which is Romulus. This is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to get there.
Yeah, very nice. Then looking back at all the experience you're having, right, in the past throughout your career, like your success and your failures, all the knowledge you're having right now, what's one thing you would do differently?
I'd be slower to say I needed something in business. When you're in the middle of the pain of a startup, there's all these quote unquote needs that pop up. I need a partner. I need another employee. I need this. I need that. But it's because you have a perception of how busy you and your team really are, and not a perception of how effective or ineffective you are. In most situations, when those needs, you really feel you need somebody, if you actually put pen to paper about the productivity of your day, it's probably very low. And because if you're productive throughout the day, I'll give you an example. I use AI now for what used to take me, I used to work 12 to 13 hours a day. Okay, and on average, to have the success that I've had. And I can now do the same amount of work thanks to AI and proper delegation to AI for 80% of my workloads, where I do the 20% that matters. I'm done in 6-7 hours now. And the need is, it feels real in the moment, but I think if you actually were able to step out of the forest and look at it, you would say, I do have more time. I could probably quit taking 2-hour lunches. I could probably wake up a little bit earlier, spend time to actually build a CRM, build a management system, build something that's going to take that extra mundane workload from you, and then deploy it. And you're going to find, hey, I'm organized now, I'm functional, and I'm doing what I'm very good at. And that's really what I would do differently is not jump so quickly on the need wagon.
Yeah. And I think this is something for the founders who are watching it, this is a common issue. And it's really important to be aware of it, really be able to reflect on your time and actually you using your time in the things which are going to give you the most leverage, especially as a founder. Sometimes it's really easy to get busy in the day-to-day grind, because what you're saying is really easy to lose yourself in the forest.
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to sell your company or have a company that does not require you to be a part of it to be successful, which is, so until that moment, you are the company. Until the company can run without you, you are the company. So I spend my entire startup, I just talked to my business partners about this today, is that we're in the middle of a growth stage in Romulus where we're onboarding a bunch of people at the same time, and there's no experience with the process that needs to happen for a larger volume of people. What we're doing is saying, okay, we're going to onboard manually for now, but I'm going to record every conversation that I have. We're going to document every conversation. I've got my CRM programmer on the line with me every single call so that he knows what needs to happen in the CRM when I say this is our next steps. This is what we're going to do. We're taking the transcripts from the calls, feeding those into AI to find the common steps that we go through so that I can get to point B which is automating that section of it much faster. And that's really how I see companies need to use AI, is not to go, I want to replace an employee, but how can I get from point A to point B much faster and without having to manually do all the labor and the work. And so you're already doing the work by doing it manually. Record that and let AI give you feedback on, now here's how to automate it. And that's what we're doing inside of our own company right now.
Yeah, very nice. And we can talk a little bit on AI, what you're saying, right? So don't just use AI to kind of replace or whatever, but really like look at what kind of issues do I have going on in my business right now, and I can I really solve that. So really look on what kind of gaps you can solve instead of just trying to do it for whatever reason. And like, where do you see, talking about AI, right? Where do you see AI going in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years from now?
The quantity of improvements, while they may look the same pace, the quality of the improvements are slower, simply because we're reaching the maximum of what we can do with the hardware that's out there. It's just a natural thing. So improvements are going to be marginal going forward. I think over the next 2 to 3 years, they are going to make enough improvements to where voice AI is going to sound indistinguishable from a human. Its responsiveness and human tone and creation will be almost indistinguishable from a human. And we're going to see this novel idea of putting AI first as a business will shift to AI complementing a business, because you've had a large influx of early adopters and even some post-early adopters that have been trying to put AI first, saying I'm your first point of contact, or I'm going to handle all of your sales. AI is going to handle all of this and that. That is not our goal at Romulus, but I'll go over that in a minute. Where I see it happening is a balance taking place, where people are going to have a clearer, more realistic expectation of what and how to use AI over the next 2 to 3 years. I also see a massive consolidation of all these AI agencies happening. Right now, there's a bunch of techie people, and I talk to them on a daily basis, that have built an AI agency mostly because they lost their job as a developer. The problem with that is a lot of them, I would say 90% of them, do not have any business experience. And so you've got all of these guys that are great at building and developing and deploying AI, not very good at business running and ownership. So I see a lot of them like that will come in and buy up those smaller agencies for their talent and say, "Hey, let's build something really amazing now. You've had your shot. You've done what the best you could do. You're struggling on the business side, so let's merge together and build something that's really impressive." And so I think the tens of thousands will run into the thousands over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, very interesting times ahead. Have you watched Harry Potter in the past? Okay, me too. I read all the books, watched all the movies. And let's say you could be Harry Potter. You could wave the magic wand. You could solve any problem in Romulus right now in just a couple of seconds. What kind of problem would you choose, which you would solve with this like magic wand?
It's always more sales, right? But mostly more people coming to us simply because they want to work with us. Allows me to be a little more picky than cold outreach and just warming people up. It's not something I'm unfamiliar with. I did it in the lighting world. I literally had to introduce the United States to what an LED light bulb was back in 2007, 2008, 2009. And it was always an educational sale. This time I'm not 5 years, 6 years too early to the market. So my magic wand would be people wanting to work with us more than me having to convince them to work with us. That's always the uphill battle.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably in Romulus the number one thing for us right now.
I love what you're saying. So you can actually be picky for the ones we're choosing because you have an abundance of options to choose from. And what are some of the goals you're working towards with Romulus, let's say, in the next 6 to 12 months from now?
All right. So next 6 to 12 months, we're looking for, because we're just deploying to the U.S., we're already operational in Europe, but in the U.S., I want to do between $4 and $5 million in volume through Romulus with probably close to $1 million in monthly recurring revenue within the next 6 to 12 months. That puts me on my path to reach 100 million by year 3. Part of the 100 million plan is it's about a $450,000 barrier to entry to do medical conversations and medical AI stuff. And we're actually paying for that now. It's a 14-month process. So the first year we know we're going to kind of do just about anything that we need to do to practice. And then we'll have a division that will concentrate heavily on medical and medical deployments as those certifications come in. The good news for our existing clients is they get the benefit of all the safety and security and non-hacking capabilities that we're going to have built in and have built in simply because we're already meeting those standards across the board.
Yeah, very nice. Lots of exciting times ahead.
Yeah.
In the next years. And It's going to be interesting question. Maybe like could be the best answer of this whole podcast. All the lessons you've learned throughout your career, throughout you growing these businesses, right? Throughout you learning how to overcome your challenges. If you just could give away one piece of wisdom, these founders who are watching the podcast right now, they can start implementing it straight away after the podcast. What kind of wisdom would you give to these founders with all the knowledge you've learned along the lead up?
Just one would be find a mentor. That is really what set me apart. Is I was very fortunate to have met people that were incredibly successful, that because when in my youth I learned humility quick. I admitted when I was wrong, and I worked my butt off, and they saw it. And I listened to my customer. Because of that, these very successful people took me under their wing and taught me about business, taught me about sales, taught me about how to sustain success and how to grow a company. And that would be my recommendation, is find a mentor. And then they're not hard to find. You've already got customers. Your customers have money and are already successful. Ask. That's really the biggest thing. I just asked. I had the humility to go, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you show me? And you'd be amazed. Every entrepreneur, every successful business owner, and I would even venture even most CEOs of companies that they didn't start, have been through hell, and they understand what it's to be a part of where you are. Ask for the advice. Hey, can I buy you coffee? And you teach me about what your experience is. And I'm seeing in my business some struggles I'm having. Can you help with that? And I mean, I had that conversation with one guy, and he wound up investing in my company. And it wasn't even something I was trying to do, but he just said, look, your stance, your personality, your humility, I want to invest and be a part of this because I see you going somewhere.
You don't have to invent the wheel anymore. And especially like nowadays where the world has become so small, right? We're having this talk right now. We can just talk as we're in persons, right? And 20 years ago, it wasn't the case, right? You kind of have to travel. If you were in another country, I would kind of have to travel either to where you are or either to where I am to have this podcast, right?
Exactly.
So especially in these days where everything becomes so small, it's very easy to ask for help, but you have to have this, what you're saying is humility to be open for it, right? To say, hey, I'm struggling with XYZ problem.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, most guys my age don't expect that humility from people younger. We just don't, because it doesn't come across very often. And so when you find a person that is a small business or a venture, an entrepreneur that is willing to say, hey, I don't have it all figured out, I personally would want to invest in that person. And I've got 3 of them that I'm continually investing in my time, my energy, and all of that right now. I'm helping start a construction company, and I don't have any equity in the company. I'm helping start a couple of other companies, and I don't have any equity in the company. These are people that ask me for advice and for help. And so we talk once a week, and we go from there.
Very nice. And for the people who are watching this podcast right now, what are some of the ways they can connect either with you, Robert, or Romulus?
So this is great. I just launched, because I've had a lot of response over my story over the last several months. And so I just launched. Robert C. Owens Jr. is on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. There's not a lot of content there, but we're going to start posting at least 3 to 5 pieces of content a week. And it's all going to be based around what happens after you make your first sell. How do you grow? How do you keep sane as your company grows? How do you hold it together when everybody's looking to you for answers and you don't have any? The real stuff that I've gone through, the pain that I've gone through, we're going to be real. I'm writing an ebook that is called Fail Big, the Entrepreneurial's Guide to Surviving Success. And so that'll be out probably within the next week and a half, but you'll be able to follow us on Robert C. Owens Jr. Just search that on Instagram, YouTube, etc., and you'll find us. And then robertcowensjr.com is going to launch probably early next week. So you caught me early on social media side. I really have not had an interest in it, but I've had a lot of people speak into my life positive things. And so if I can offer that back as content for people to consume and be on podcasts to help other entrepreneurs, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, very nice. Robert, thanks so much for being on the podcast and for sharing all your wisdom, sharing your golden nuggets. For everyone who's watching the podcast right now, I'm going to make sure to put the links how to find Robert down in the description below. Everyone, thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you, guys.